November 1929. On the edge of Dessau airfield, a machine stretches its wingspan wider than any land plane in the world. So massive, its passengers ride inside the wings, gazing forward like pilots. The Junkers G38 was unveiled as a miracle of German engineering. A colossus with a 144-foot reach, walkable wings, and an interior so advanced that passengers, smoking lounge included, could watch mechanics crawl to running engines in flight. But while the world marveled at its luxury and daring, the G38 would vanish into the shadows of war, transformed into a secret Luftwaffe transport. How did this icon of comfort become a casualty of conflict, and what secrets did it leave behind? Hugo Junkers stood on the tarmac in Dessau as the G38 rolled out for its maiden flight on November 6, 1929. The ground crew, dwarfed by the 44-metre wingspan, moved briskly beneath the looming shadow of the world's largest land plane. Government inspectors, engineers, and a crowd of press gathered at a respectful distance, their attention drawn to the strange corrugated giant. It was more than an aircraft. It was the physical answer to a decade of political and technical struggle. Junkers had spent years pushing against the boundaries set by the Treaty of Versailles, which had forbidden Germany from building large military planes. Every stage of the G38's development had been scrutinized by regulators wary of hidden military ambition. Only by emphasizing luxury and commercial promise, passenger comfort, panoramic views, and in-flight smoking lounges had Junkers convinced authorities to approve the project. The G38's thick, walkable wings and broad, low fuselage looked nothing like the fragile biplanes of the era. At the root, the wings measured 1.7 meters thick, tall enough for a grown man to stand upright. Corrugated duralumin skin glinted in the autumn sun, a testament to the all-metal construction that set new standards for strength and safety. Reporters scribbled notes as mechanics checked the four massive engines. 2 inboard V12 and 2 outboard 6 cylinders, together producing 2,366 horsepower. Junkers' team had spent months refining the cantilever wing structure, eliminating the drag of external bracing wires. The triple rudder tail, rising above the crowd, hinted at the challenges of steering such a behemoth. When the engines roared to life, the airfield vibrated with anticipation. The G38 accelerated down the runway, lifting off after only 600 meters, an impossibly short distance for an aircraft of its size. As it climbed, the crowd erupted in applause. Newspapers the next morning described the spectacle as a turning point for German engineering, an act of defiance against limitation. For Junkers, the flight was more than proof of concept. It was a public victory in a long battle for technical freedom, achieved not just with blueprints and patents, but with relentless negotiation and a vision for the future of flight. Inside the G38's vast wing, the engineering story takes a dramatic turn. Most airplanes of the era relied on thin wings and a forest of wires for strength. Here, the wing root measured 1.7 meters thick, taller than many of the engineers who built it. This thickness wasn't just for show. It allowed for a network of internal corridors, wide enough for a grown adult to walk upright from the fuselage nearly to the engines. Mechanics could carry tools and perform inspections in flight, shielded by corrugated duralumin skin that gave the G38 its signature ribbed look and remarkable rigidity. The corrugated metal wasn't chosen for style. Each panel formed part of a stressed skin structure, distributing aerodynamic loads across the entire surface. This design eliminated the need for external bracing wires or struts, which had always been a source of drag and maintenance headaches. Instead, the G38's cantilever wing stood free, a clean expanse supporting the full weight of the plane, its fuel, and its passengers. Power came from a quartet of engines, 2 inboard Junkers L88 V12 and 2 outboard L8A 6 cylinders, together producing 1,764 kilowatts, or 2,366 horsepower. The engine mix was unusual, but it offered operational flexibility and helped balance the aircraft's enormous weight across its span. 4-blade propellers on the inboard engines and 2-blade props outboard kept vibration in check and allowed engineers to fine-tune performance. The G38's performance on the ground was just as impressive. Despite its massive size, it could lift off in only 600 meters, thanks to the aerodynamic efficiency of its thick wing and the power of its engines. This short takeoff was essential for operating from the airfields of the early 1930s, many of which were little more than grass strips. Steering such a giant in the air posed fresh challenges. The solution was a triple rudder configuration, 3 vertical fins at the tail, each contributing to stability and reducing the force required at the controls. Pilots could manage the G38's vast surfaces without wrestling the yoke, even in crosswinds or during tight turns. Flight engineers became a new breed of crew member, moving through the wing's interior during flight to monitor engines, adjust radiator shutters, or make minor repairs. The corridors were lined with inspection panels, tool racks, and even lighting to guide the way. This walkable wing wasn't just a marvel of size, it was a living, working space, proof that the G38's spectacle was matched by practical, forward-thinking design. Passengers entering the Junkers G38 for the first time found themselves in a world that defied expectations. Instead of narrow aisles and tiny portholes, the journey began with a stroll into the heart of the wing itself. The cabins, nestled within the thick root of the wing, offered a vantage point unlike any other in aviation. Sloped panoramic windows curved along the leading edge, wrapping the lounge in sunlight and framing a forward view that rivaled the cockpit. For many, the sensation was disorienting at first. Fields and towns slipped by directly beneath their feet, while the horizon stretched out ahead unobstructed. Inside, the atmosphere was more reminiscent of a private club than an airplane. Armchairs upholstered in velvet and leather lined the walls, grouped around low tables set for coffee or cards. Passengers could lean against the curved glass, watching the landscape drift by in near silence. The engine's rumble softened by layers of metal and insulation. The smoking lounge, complete with ashtrays built into the furniture, became a favourite gathering spot. Here, business travellers and journalists swapped stories, their voices mingling with the steady hum of flight. The engineering behind these vistas was as bold as the experience itself. Each window was a feat of custom glazing, angled to reduce glare and distortion, and reinforced to withstand the pressure changes of flight. The effect was immersive. Passengers described feeling as if they were hovering at the very front of the aircraft, with nothing but air and glass between themselves and the open sky. For those prone to vertigo, the view could be unsettling. For everyone else, it was a revelation, the world as seen from inside the wing of a giant crossing Europe in comfort and style. 7 crew members kept the G38's airborne world running with a precision that felt as much like theatre as engineering. Stewards, dressed in crisp uniforms, moved quietly among the velvet armchairs and polished tables, refilling coffee cups and distributing menus that promised multi-course meals, even at altitude. The galley, tucked just behind the cockpit, turned out hot soups and fresh rolls, a small miracle given the vibration and constant drone of 4 engines. Passengers, expecting the rattling discomfort of earlier airliners, found themselves greeted with white-gloved service and gentle conversation. In the wing lounges, guests swapped stories and played cards, while stewards navigated the gentle sway of flight with practiced ease. The social ritual of air travel was in full effect. Introductions over cocktails, business deals, inked on linen napkins, and the occasional toast to the future of aviation. For those with a sense of adventure or a strong stomach, the panoramic windows offered a view that could unsettle even the most seasoned traveller. Some first-timers confessed to vertigo, gripping the armrests as the landscape unfurled beneath their feet. Others leaned into the sensation, comparing it to the deck of a ship or the balcony of a grand hotel. Meanwhile, mechanics patrolled the hidden corridors inside the wings, tools in hand, ready to address any engine quirk mid-flight. Their presence was both practical and reassuring, a reminder that behind the luxury, this was still a machine demanding constant attention. The crew's choreography, from the galley to the engine bays, turned each journey into a seamless blend of spectacle and service, setting a standard that rivaled the great Zeppelins of the era. Luxury vanished under camouflage paint as the G38's future was rewritten by war. The Luftwaffe requisitioned DD 2500, stripping away the trappings of first-class travel and converting the airliner into a flying workhorse. Gone were the velvet armchairs and smoking lounges. Cargo nets and supply crates filled the once sumptuous cabins. Crew manifests now listed military pilots and engineers tasked with ferrying ammunition, rations, and spare parts across occupied Europe. During the Greek campaign in 1941, DD 2500 lumbered over mountain passes with its cavernous hold packed to the limits. Supply runs demanded precision and nerve. The G38's slow speed and vast silhouette made it an easy target, yet its range and payload remained unmatched for a landplane of its day. The G38's transformation wasn't unique to Germany. In 1930, Japanese military planners quietly acquired the design, licensing it to Mitsubishi for a new purpose. The result was the Ki-20, a giant bomber built in secret and unveiled only to select army officials. 6 Ki-20s left the assembly lines between 1933 and 1935, each one a heavily modified cousin of the original airliner. The passenger lounges became reinforced bomb bays, able to carry up to 5,000 kilograms of ordnance. Crew size grew to 10, with gunners stationed at 5 machine gun posts and a 20mm cannon mounted on the dorsal spine. The Ki-20's 4 engines, eventually upgraded to Jumo 204 diesels, hauled the massive airframe over long distances, but slow speeds and mechanical complexity limited its role to propaganda displays and rear area transport. These adaptations erased any trace of the G38's peacetime ambitions. Once a symbol of civilian progress, the aircraft now served under orders, its vast interior reimagined for war. The same thick wings that once offered panoramic views now sheltered bombs, cargo, and the hopes of generals looking for an edge. For the crews, the transition was jarring. From serving champagne to loading crates, from velvet seats to steel armour, the dual-use path of the G38 stands as a stark reminder of how quickly technology can be drafted into conflict, reshaping both its purpose and its legacy. On May 1st, 1936, D2000 lined up at Dessau for another routine flight to Budapest. The crew, 7 in total, settled into their stations. 13 passengers buckled in, some glancing out at the enormous wings they would soon be riding inside. The G38's size no longer drew crowds, but its presence still commanded respect. As the engines thundered to full power, the aircraft began its takeoff roll. Seconds later, the pilot pulled back on the yoke, and nothing responded as expected. Instead of climbing, the nose dipped. The elevator controls, recently serviced, had been reconnected with the cables crossed. Up became down. The G38 struggled for altitude, but the mistake was fatal. The aircraft stalled and struck the ground just beyond the runway. 2 crew members, including the pilot and a flight engineer, died on impact. 1 passenger was killed, and the rest suffered injuries ranging from broken bones to concussions. The investigation left little doubt. The crossed cables were a maintenance error, a simple oversight with irreversible consequences. The accident forced a reckoning in German aviation. New protocols demanded that every control surface be checked for correct movement before flight, a practice now standard worldwide. For the G38, the crash was more than a tragedy. It was a warning about the risks woven into complexity. DD 2500, the second and last G38, survived only a few more years. By May 17, 1941, It wore Luftwaffe camouflage and carried supplies over occupied Greece. That night, British bombers found the airfield. Incendiaries and high explosives rained down. The G-38's vast silhouette, once a symbol of civilian progress, became a target. Flames consumed the aircraft where it stood, cargo still inside. No crew casualties were recorded, but nothing could be salvaged from the wreckage. The destruction of D-2500 closed the operational chapter of the G-38. Both airframes were gone, one lost to human error, the other to the violence of war. What remained was a legacy shaped as much by ambition and innovation as by the limits of fallibility and fate. April 10, 1930 stands as a milestone in aviation history. On that day, the Junkers G38 lifted a 5-ton payload into the air, an achievement that drew the attention of record-certifying officials and technical press across Europe. The aircraft, still gleaming from its recent debut, was loaded with 5,000 kilograms of ballast, more than twice what most airliners of the time could manage. Engineers and flight crew gathered, aware that success would not only bring prestige, but also prove the G-38's capabilities beyond any marketing claim. The takeoff, witnessed by representatives from the Fédération Aéronautique Internationale, was a demonstration of raw power and careful planning. The G-38 accelerated smoothly down the Dessau runway, its thick wings providing lift with remarkable efficiency. Once airborne, the aircraft completed a closed-circuit route, maintaining altitude and speed with its full load, while observers recorded every detail. The feat was widely reported in technical journals and confirmed by aviation historians, cementing the G-38's reputation as the world's most capable land plane. For Hugo Junkers and his team, the record was more than a headline. It was proof that their design philosophy could deliver not just comfort but unmatched performance in the air. Blueprints and fragments of the G-38 still rest in museum archives, some at Dessau, others at the Deutsches Museum in Munich. Engineers from Boeing and Airbus, tracing the roots of today's blended wing body designs, have studied these original documents, searching for answers hidden in the thick wing geometry and cantilevered spars. In technical labs, researchers compare digital models of the G-38 to modern prototypes, measuring not just dimensions but the philosophy behind them, integrating passengers, structure and systems into a single, efficient whole. Sustainability studies now revisit Junkers' thick wing concept, recognizing its potential for fuel savings and expanded cabin space. Museum staff preserve scale models and cutaway diagrams, displaying the G-38's walkable wings and internal corridors as both artifact and inspiration. The aircraft itself is long gone, but its ideas remain, alive in the archives, influencing the next generation of engineers who see in those blueprints a vision of flight that still hasn't been fully realized. Each preserved drawing carries a quiet promise that the future of aviation may yet catch up to Junkers' imagination. When the Junkers G-38 first took flight on November 6, 1929, it became the largest land plane ever built, boasting a 44-metre wingspan and cabins set inside its giant wings. Its stressed, skinned aluminum structure and in-flight engine access set new engineering standards, while its passenger lounges rivaled the luxury of any Zeppelin. Yet by May 17, 1941, both original aircraft were gone. One lost to a control cable error in 1936, the other destroyed in a British air raid during World War II. The full details of its wartime missions, especially in Luftwaffe service, remain partly classified, and gaps persist in Japanese records of the key 20 bombers. Still, the G-38's April 1930 payload world record and its influence on modern blended wing designs are well documented. Today, preserved blueprints and museum exhibits in Dessau and Munich attest to its legacy, a brief era when aviation dared to put passengers in the wings and engineers imagined the impossible.